we have about perfect. Thank you so much. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've had a wonderful morning so far with our summit. We're going to spend some time highlighting some of our tools on our website for the next little while before we take our lunch break. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tanya Tourangeau. I'm Dene First Nation, originally from the Northwest Territories, but I'm joining you here today in Treaty 6 land, City of Edmonton, which is traditionally known as Amiskwachi Waskagan. And saying that slow again, Amiskwachi Waskagan, which translates into Beaver Hills House. I'm the Indigenous Engagement Lead for AMP, and I'm really proud to say that I'm going on my 2-year anniversary with AMP. And as of this summer, I've gone full time. And my main focus is building awareness for Indigenous mentoring across Alberta. And with that, it's providing more mentors for Indigenous youth, being Indigenous mentors and non-Indigenous mentors, because I feel that there's a lot of value in assisting our young Indigenous youth in walking in both worlds. And it's important to be successful in understanding the Western world, along with understanding our traditional communities, our reservations, our settlements, our family circles. And so what we're trying to do is provide as many resources as possible to support healthy relationships between mentees and mentors, and to provide some guidance to program coordinators who are looking to, whether to have a formal or an informal mentoring program in their school or an agency, in an organization, and provide some guidance and assistance and support with that. So right now I'm sharing my screen with you, and this is our Indigenous mentoring page. And really, I have to stress that this page is in development. We really just started putting these resources together, and we're already finding new ways to expand how we could further develop this into a knowledge hub. And so the first 3 tools I'm focusing on within this page is the ones that have these beautiful graphics of children within their spirit animals. And just briefly going to give a shout out to our graphic artist, Megan Curry of Crossing Design, who helped us, one, redesign our AMP logo, and to start looking at our tools to have more Indigenous representation within them. And that's what we did with these 3 tools. Now, going to the 3 tools, what we did was we have this really great, maybe I should start with a considerations guide first. The considerations guide is a guide that we've had on our website since 2017. It was highly researched by 2 U of A doctors who engaged many organizations, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, from across Alberta, community members, knowledge keepers, elders, program coordinators. The entire list is included within this guide. And what they did is they created these considerations within this guide. And just to give you an idea, one page of the considerations is the consideration 1 of building a mentoring program with Indigenous communities. And it's really in depth in taking ideas and suggestions and bringing them together all in this guide. But what I found with this guide is that it's really hard to digest right away by itself. And so what we did was we created these 3 tools to accompany that guide. So when you go to our Indigenous mentoring webpage on AMP, what we encourage you to do is download each of these 3 tools in addition to the guide. So you'll see right at the top of this tool, it says this tool complements the considerations for mentoring Indigenous children and youth. So the tool is just meant to be that, to give you some quick information to assist you, but we want you to go into the guide and really read about that research that the doctors provided, that the community members got together on, and that because it really provides more in-depth information in how to set up your informal or formal mentoring program for Indigenous youth. But what I have to stress is it's not enough to say that you're providing a mentoring program for Indigenous youth and just, applying the label Indigenous to it. It truly has to be an Indigenous program where we see our own community in it, where we see our own culture within it, that we feel that it's a safe space. And so this first tool talks about those components of being an actual Indigenous mentoring program, having that community connection, following community practices and protocol, finding ways to really provide that safe space to Indigenous youth. And so with the outline considerations here, 1, 10, 9, and 4, encouraging you to go back to that guide and ensure that your program that you're putting together honors local community, culture, traditions, and teachings. And why I stress that is because, like, for example, a lot of people don't know across Alberta that we have different cultural teachings right here within, between Treaty 8 and let's say Treaty 7. So for example, with our medicine wheel, in Treaty 6 and 8, our medicine wheel has a color blue in it. But for Treaty 7, they don't use blue in their medicine wheel, they use black. And so it's understanding those cultural differences that can make a big impact in the community. So to give you an example, I was driving down the highway, coming back home from the airport last week, and there was a Dodge dealership who had a teepee set up. But the teepee poles, 4 of them were painted black. And right away I was like, okay, that's a nice gesture, but you didn't do the homework to understand in Treaty 6 area, we don't use black that way. And by the time I drove back, someone must have told them, reached out to them, and I'm happy they did, because they changed the teepee colored poles to blue. And so it's really important when you're thinking about your program, understanding those cultural differences and making sure that you're not offending anyone when you're representing our culture and including it. The second tool is about engaging Indigenous communities and organizations and supporting your Indigenous mentoring program. Indigenous communities, we want to partner more than ever before. We know that we want to do this together. And a quote that's often heard in Indigenous world right now is, nothing for us without us. That means that we want to be at the table. We want to have a voice. And so this tool talks about, how do you engage local Indigenous communities? Where do you reach out if you're in an urban setting? What do you do in communicating with the local First Nation or Métis community? And so the first consideration, talks about identifying those local communities and organizations, whether they're First Nations, Métis settlements. If you're urban, you can look at your friendship centers. There's Indigenous employment and training organizations all across Alberta, various family and youth agencies, student councils. And that's just a short list to encourage you of where you can start looking to build those bridges with Indigenous communities. And sharing information and identifying that, you're setting up a win-win opportunity with the youth, that you're looking just like how we are for the next 7 generations with our youth. Our third tool is talking about engaging Indigenous mentors. Now, I include this, but I also stress that we need non-Indigenous mentors too. So we don't only want to tailor to Indigenous mentors, but it's really important that we engage the Indigenous mentor community as well. Now, mentoring is traditionally a part of our community, and really we don't have a word for mentoring in our language, but it's very natural through our community connections that we're always in that mentoring mode. It's kind of like what Muslim Rick shared this morning about traditional showings. You're demonstrating how to do things properly or correctly. And beyond just teaching, but engaging the youth in those teachings. And so there's actually Mentor Canada research that was done right here in Canada, which is rare to have for Indigenous mentoring. But their research showed that Indigenous adults are 5 times more likely to mentor than non-Indigenous adults. So how do we tap into those mentors? We have to start bridging awareness for the Indigenous community. So that's like going back to the previous tool. If Indigenous people don't know where to mentor, they're not going to sign up to mentor. So you got to build those relationships so they also know that you're providing a safe space not only for the mentees, but for the mentors to sign up as well. And that this, again, it's a win-win benefit for everyone to work together for our Indigenous youth. And also like promoting the benefits of mentorship. We know, being in this field, that it's not only the mentees that benefit from a successful mentoring relationship, it's the mentors as well. You know, they gain communication skills, leadership skills, they're being more a part of a community just by engaging with that Indigenous youth. So we encourage you to really think about, within your comms plan, how are you engaging these Indigenous youth? Now, marketing research is like my ACDEV background. Marketing research shows that a person needs to see marketing at least 8 times before they take action. So how are you throughout the year planning to bridge awareness, bring awareness to your program to the Indigenous communities at least 8 times? Make that a goal, make that a yearly goal. Are you posting about your program 8 times on social media? Is it in your newsletter? Are you sharing information, resources, and tools across? The more you do that and the more you build a community together, the more you'll be successful in building a strong Indigenous mentoring program. Now, these are just the first 3 tools provided through this guide. And what you'll see in the coming days is the consideration guide is kind of being overhauled with our new logo and look and feel, so that although it might change a little bit over the course of the next few weeks, it's going to maintain the same information. And we encourage you to come back to our Indigenous mentoring website, download these tools, download this resource, the considerations guide, and really think about, you know, how you can form, you know, whether it's an improved Indigenous mentoring program or a new mentoring program. Now, just briefly, on our same page, we've had our Powwow 101 come out this year. It was super successful, and we got lots of feedback about understanding how you can attend Indigenous events. And what we did with our newsletter, and we're going to continue doing every 2 weeks, is providing Indigenous events across Alberta that mentees and mentors or program coordinators can attend and start building those relationships within our Indigenous communities. Because if you see a poster that advertises whether it's a powwow, a tea dance, or a round dance, that means that you can attend. And then if you go down to the bottom of our page, you'll see a collection of our webinars that we've had so far. And I call this my knowledge, it's not mine, but AMP's Knowledge Keeper series. And this is really a unique collection of webinars with Alberta Indigenous knowledge keepers, providing insights to, for example, Adrian's on September 20th talked about understanding a round dance, being a pipe carrier, and the teachings within that. The one previously on September 13th with George Desjardins had star stories in it and told about our traditional creation stories with the stars. And then our one earlier in the year with Muslim Rick Lightning was a lot of what he builds upon, a lot of what he shared today, and the importance of lifting our youth up. Our one that doesn't have a title there, we have to fix that, is with Muriel Lee, September 27th. That was shortly after the first 215 graves were found in 2021. And is also a really impactful webinar with a knowledge keeper who guides us in finding ways that we could lift Indigenous youth up. And our last one was like a collection of encouraging mentors to step up for Indigenous youth. And so we encourage you, if you have the time to, schedule these webinars or share them within your programs, use them as teaching guides for advancing Indigenous learning. I think that would be so fantastic. And the last resource highlights I'm going to share is our Mentoring in Schools page. In addition to, providing mentoring programs for Indigenous youth, we can provide fantastic programs for all youth across Alberta. And within our page here, you'll find a collection of toolkits, tools, guides, templates for all ages, all grades, including, and I'll try not to go too fast because I know I get vertigo when people do this on my screen, including toolkits for high school mentoring and the CTS courses that have been put together for high school where the students can gain credits. And that's right at the very bottom, the career and technology study courses. And this is just a brief insight to what we offer at AMP and also where we hope to grow more. We encourage you to come back to our website throughout the year, sign up for our newsletter if you haven't yet, and stay in touch with us because mentoring is a solid solution for all youth across Alberta, and we need to do more to lift them up and ensure that they transition successfully from being, a young one to a young adult. And I really think that a lot was shared with us this morning through our openings and our keynote speaker in different ways that we can honor that within our communities. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim to sign us off before lunchtime. Masicho, everyone. And if you're in my session this afternoon, we're going to continue the conversation about Indigenous resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for going through all of the resources that are on our AMP website. As you know, Alberta Mentoring Partnership is a key place for resources. So if you or your organization use any great mentoring resources and you'd like to share that information with us, you can either plop the links into this chat box here, or you can contact us at info@albertamentors.ca, and I'll get Andy to throw that into the website. So we are going to be breaking here for lunch. I hope you enjoyed the morning keynote and the breakout sessions. I happened to be in the same building where the UKPICs were being built, and we saw some great finished products. I want to thank Kimberly, Angelica, Caroline, our pre-recorded session with Brenda, and Sarah and Tanya for hosting and sharing their knowledge with us this morning. We're going to break for lunch, and we're going to come back into this main room at 12:55 because we have 3 fabulous youth from across Alberta that are going to have a conversation with Sarah on what mentoring has meant to them in their lives. So enjoy your lunch, and we'll be back here at 12:55.